I'm happy to see as many of you here as are here. We're scheduled to start at 8 o'clock, and those of you who know me know that we're going to start on time. We will finish on time. You guys got the same records I have. Just a slight diversion to start up. It has nothing to do with the orientation session, but it's too good not to share. We were at Lake Powell for an elder hostel, and one of our instructors told a story on his wife. He said, in Page, Arizona, it's not known as a mecca for women's fashion. So whenever we go to Walmart, my wife immediately goes to the women's clothing section. I go look around Walmart to see what sort of things I don't want to buy. And he said, then I go up to the women's wear, and my wife didn't see me come in. I walked up behind her and patted her on the backside. And she said, without a moment's hesitation, if you're not my husband, I shop here on Tuesdays. I thought that was too good not to share with you. And if any of you want to use that at after parties, things that you do somewhere, that's okay too. We have tonight, we're going to have our orientation session to give you an idea about what's happening at this convention and what has happened in the 31 previous conventions which we have held. CALLERLAB began back in 1971 with a group of dedicated leaders who are pretty much who's who in the square dance activity of color leadership. And when they first formed the organization, they came up with a set of 15 goals that they really wanted to consider doing. They did agree immediately to endorse the Sets and Order American Square Dance Society Color Teacher Manual, their existing basic program and extended basic programs of American Square Dancing. They agreed that they would appoint a committee to prepare a recommended curriculum for color training for a 5-day color leader school. They also established a set of 15 statements which they felt would lend direction to the organization of the square dance colors of the world. The first one that they came up with was, let's put the dance back into square dancing. How many of you were dancing or calling, I guess it's now 31, 32, 33 years ago, say for the last 30 years or more? That's terrific. By the way, we have a couple of people who were here in the orientation session who have been to every convention. I don't know why they're here and I'm up here, but anyhow, nice to see you, Frances. Frances and Julia Zeller, she's been to every one of them as well. Herb Egender in the back. And if you see a number of red, white, and blue ribbons, they indicate first-time attendees at the CALLERLAB convention, so make sure you make them feel welcome as well. Let's put the dance back into square dancing. I think we can all accept that as should be our goal as our calling activity. We need to establish an accepted form of standardization. It is vital for the continuance and growth of the activity. Color leadership, color teacher leadership, the training needs to be improved. It's the responsibility of the callers and leaders and teachers. Professional standards for callers and teachers need to be established. Today's square dancing is necessary, ready for a relook at it, reappraisal. The combination of the various forms of square dancing should be encouraged, such as rounds, contras, and quadrilles. The selfish exploitation of square dancing should be vigorously discouraged. So far, you've heard motherhood and apple pie. What they said, the next one is kind of interesting. The over-organization of dancer leader groups can pose a problem for the future progress of the activity. We acknowledge the importance of the club color leadership system. They made a couple of comments about the National Square Dance Conventions and how we could support their efforts. What CALLERLAB can do to help color leaders in the future. The need for better communication. The need for an experimental movements clearinghouse. The need to study the subject of fees for colors and a means of accrediting colors. Well, those were the 15 statements that they made to begin with. Some of them they have done well. The first convention, other than this planning session that I'm talking about, was held in St. Louis, Missouri. It was at the Marriott Hotel. And if you can imagine, people like Frank Lane, Jerry Hague, some of the other notables of the day were in there in the hallway doing arm turns and arguing whether it should be hands up or hands down. We've heard that song before. The next day we broke into smaller groups and we discussed that was one of the subjects. I happened to be in one group sitting right behind Jean Parrish, and she's a lovely, sweet, grandmotherly type person. And she made this statement: "I don't care where a man puts his hands as long as he's gentle." The laughter was considerable, as you might suspect. In the next room, Vaughn Parrish was there doing a different discussion group, and he said, "I wonder what Jean said now." Somehow they know. Of the various things that we have done within CALLERLAB, we've had some degree of success, and we've had some degree where we haven't always been perfectly correct the first time we tried something. We had established a board of governors. They were all elected. Nobody was grandfathered in. We had some Canadian members of the first board. We've had annual rotating conventions before we established the present system of East Central, West Central, East Central, West Central. And these are good because they take the convention to a closer proximity of various callers throughout various states. We have established mini-lab conventions. We've had 2 in Australia, 1 over in England. We had a mini-lab convention up in New England. And all of these are ways to take CALLERLAB closer to the callers to reduce the expenses for them. We're going to talk about some of the things tonight as to our accomplishments and what we have done and what we have accomplished. There are a couple of things I would like to talk about, however, and that is that back when CALLERLAB, and just before CALLERLAB was established, it was a fairly common practice for callers to come to an area and teach 5 or 6 new moves for the dance that night. You might never hear them again. Another caller would come in the following week and teach a different set of 5 or 6 calls. And CALLERLAB has recognized that we have to establish some sort of control, not trying to restrict what callers call, but to have some degree of giving the dancers a fair chance to succeed. And I think those are admirable goals, and we've had fairly good success with getting the callers to follow the party rule. Back in those days, callers didn't share with one another. They had their little black books. You can't look at what I'm calling. You might steal my dancers. And when CALLERLAB came into being, this feeling of exchanging attitudes. Some of you may remember that Frank Lane always used the term snapperoo. Marshall Flippo liked the term barge through. And Frank Lane will tell you that he got Jerry Hague and Marshall Flippo to stop using barge through. He would agree to stop using snapperoo. He said, "I got 2 for 1 on that one." But that's the kind of cooperation that we saw established. And the funny thing is that at that first CALLERLAB convention, and there were 104 callers at that, it didn't make any difference if you were a first-timer or the most experienced caller in the world, someone like Bob Osgood. You had the same right to speak up. Your opinion was just as valuable as theirs. And I would encourage... Am I missing something here? You would be encouraged to do that same sort of thing here. If you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it. If you got a first-hand ribbon, be proud of that. But your opinion is just as important as anybody who's up here on the stage tonight, anyone who is in the Board of Governors. And by the way, if you are attending your first convention or you haven't been for a while, the Board of Governors wear red ribbons with gold lettering on them, say board member, or they say executive committee. Talk to them. They are the elected leaders of this organization. And they meet in meetings forever. I must confess and Mike can attest to this, having been executive secretary for 15 years and served on the board for 12 years and not having missed a meeting of the Board of Governors, I don't miss it at all today. It's fun to see what the people are doing and get out and talk to them and eat dinner with your friends and converse. And I would encourage you, if you don't know somebody, chat with them, get to know them, because that's what this activity is all about. It's the people organization. You do this with your dancers, I suggest that you do it with one another as well. Caller teacher accreditation came into being, and we have accredited caller coaches. And now we have added the program of accredited teacher certification. We established a code of ethics. It's interesting if you try to come up with a list of what you should do, what are the attributes of being a good caller, and what are the attributes of something that you shouldn't be doing. Every caller that you can list on here has something that maybe he shouldn't have done, but they all had one thing in common, and that was a set of ethics. They did the ethical thing, and that's what made them great, and that's what makes somebody in business great. If he is an ethical individual, you like to deal with him. So we have to remember that we're out there dealing with the public. When the callers got together, I guess the first meeting was in Dallas, where we had many of the people who were active in training other callers got together to establish a curriculum guidelines. It was a Donnybrook. Some people didn't want to include leadership. Some people didn't want to include ethics. Others said you can't do it without it, because if you don't have ethics and you don't have leadership, we may not become callers because we wanted to become leaders, but we were forced into that position. The net result of which was the curriculum guidelines, and later on after that, the technical supplement. We have a number of publications which are available down in the office, and I would urge you to look at them. And if you don't have them, some of them you will have to put into your own library. It's worthwhile effort. Mike is going to talk about some of the other things of the standard applications and things of that nature. I would just mention for you before I introduce Mike Seastrom that after this session tonight, we're going to have in this room a session on after parties, and Randy Doherty is going to be the MC of that. Some of you have not received your packets because you arrived after they closed. They will be open again tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, and that's downstairs below on the escalator down on the arcade level. Hang a sharp right and the office will be open. But the opening session tomorrow is going to be held in Silver State 1, and if you go out this door here, you see a down escalator. It's on the lower arcade level. So don't tell me that you can't find it, because I'll be looking for it too. Silver State 1, and that starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. Read your schedules. Attend as many sessions as you can. If there is a committee which interests you, by all means, sign up with that committee chairman, and they will notify the office to put you on that committee. If you're a first-time attendee, you can attend and serve on as many committees as you would like to serve on. There's no reason that you can't do that. There are some committees, however, that do have specific requirements in order to join. If you want to serve on the advanced committee, you have to be calling the advanced program. Duh. If you want to serve on the challenge committee, guess what programs you have to be calling? You guys are quick. If you want to serve on the caller training committee, we would like to see your experience having dealt with other training of other callers. And there are some committees which are appointed strictly by the Board of Governors, and those would be the Program Policy Committee, which would consist of existing chairmen of the various program committees. But it's very democratically run. Every year there is an election to the Board of Governors. Board members serve a 3-year term and may be elected to 3 consecutive terms. There is a rotation of that, and the Board of Governors does not consist strictly of national and international callers. We have some callers from overseas serving on the board, but that's not a requirement. It's not a requirement that you be a festival caller. You must have attended 3 conventions in order to run for the board, be nominated and signed for by 25 or more members of CALLERLAB, and you can run as many times as you want, and you may or may not be elected the first, second, or third time you run for the board. But it is a democratic organization. There are meetings to the board, but their decisions are made and mostly ratified by the membership, and there will be some changes. There's one of which we're going to vote on this year at the convention, and you've received that notice and direction. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Mike to talk about some of our successes and some of the details of that, and then we will open it up for, and then Roy Gatta will be talking about the Partners Committee, and Freddie is up here on the stage, who is my wife. She's allowed here to add beauty to what otherwise would be a bloody brawl. Mike Seastrom.
Thank you, John. How many of you have picked up your packets so far? How many of you that picked up your packets have read through your packets? Almost everybody. How many have not picked up your packets yet? How many have no idea what a packet is? Basically, the packets look like this, okay? And inside the packets are some great stuff. There's a few little goodies in there, a pen, and I think a little brush that most of us could use if you've got all that dust on your set. You can brush that stuff off. But one of the things it has is the motion to change this program policy, which most of you should have seen in direction, because anything that's brought up in the general meeting, which occurs on Sunday morning, this policy is Wednesday. What day is it today, John? Sunday. I'm still waiting for my luggage to come in. Anyway, on Wednesday morning, our general meeting, this motion to change the program policy is in your convention packet. Also in that convention packet is a whole list of all the sessions for this convention. And it gives a pretty good description of those sessions, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of circle the ones or mark the ones that you might want to attend. And because the conventions that have little stars by them, or the sessions that have stars by them, are also the sessions that are taped, it'll give you a good idea if you want to purchase the tapes for those sessions. We have a terrific company that has taped our sessions since, the beginning of 1980, Convention Tapes International. They not only have the tapes from all our past conventions, but they are now offering at this convention, I believe, for the first time, sessions in MP3 format. So if you're interested, you might talk to Scott down there at Convention Tapes International. But the bottom line is that you can't make every one of these sessions. If you're here with your partner and you have the opportunity to have your partner attend some and you attend some, terrific. That's a great way to go. But the bottom line is pick the ones you want to go to, look at them ahead of time. It's a kind of a real rush to finish a coffee break and then realize the sessions are starting and then try to pick which session you're going to. So do it ahead of time. There's a smaller version of this explanation of all the sessions that comes up in this little sheet that folds up terrific and fits in your pocket real well. And on the back side of it is a map that may or may not help you. I would say it's best to kind of wander around a little here and get your bearings before you start looking at this map, because there's all the slot machines and the lights and a lot of other things that can distract you. But for the most part, you should be able to find this. Just a few little trips walking around the hotel. But this is also a good one. Mark this one up and put down the sessions that you want to attend. And if you can't attend a session, but there's something else at that same time slot that you might want to hear or listen to, buy the tape. Okay, you can get the entire package of all the tapes of all the sessions, or you can just select a few. But when you do decide which tapes you want, then go down and purchase those at Convention Tapes International, and then they'll have them ready for you on Wednesday morning. There's also a critique sheet, which is included in the packet. Please fill this critique sheet out. This sheet is read, every one of these critique sheets is read by the executive committee before they plan the following conventions. They really listen to what you guys and gals write down. So please make sure you fill this thing out. Say good things as well as the things you think need to be corrected. If there was something that you really liked, put that down too. Say, I'd like to see that again, or we should maybe do that again and maybe do it this way. And there's some great questions on here, so fill that out. There's also a sheet that has to request to serve on a CALLERLAB committee. That used to be on the back of the critique sheet, but it's no longer. It's a sheet all by itself. It also gives you a good list of the committees. Now, Roy brought up a good point when John was talking, and he said that there's certain committees where you have to fulfill requirements to be on that particular committee. But nobody says that you can't or your partner can't attend the committee meeting and listen to what's being discussed. Okay? It's even, as a committee member, I don't think there's any problem with you standing up and giving your 2 cents in. The other thing is when you do stand up and talk in a session, please stand up, give your name, and state where you come from, and then begin to say what you have to say. It's really important when there is a session being taped that you make sure that you're on the microphone when you speak. It's so important for these tapes to have the questions that come from the audience on the tape, as well as the comments. And if you're standing up and you don't have a mic, there's usually just a giant blank spot on the tape, and it's not a real good tape as a result of that. So I guess what I'm trying to get across here is look through this packet. There's some great stuff in here and good information, and plan ahead of time your approach to this convention, and you'll get a lot more out of it, and you'll really enjoy it. Also at this convention, in addition to having the different ribbons for committee chairman, say that again, committee chairman and moderators and panelists and board of governor meetings, board of governors, we also have representatives from other organizations at our convention in attendance. When you see these representatives, they will be introduced tomorrow morning at the first session, our first session that we attend as a group at 9 o'clock. When you have a chance to stop in the hallways and talk to the representatives and ask questions, find out what's going on, you'll really enjoy the convention just that much more. These representatives bring a lot of information from their organizations to our convention. They're here to listen as well as to answer questions, so also catch that approach. When you get a chance to, as John said, to have dinner, have lunch, sit down with other callers. You know, that's one of the reasons why we wear these badges. Find out where they're from, who they are, and oddly enough, it's probably somebody you might have seen at a couple of years down the line. But since we all change from year to year, and things, you know, it's a good time to reacquaint yourself with people that you might have met a couple of years ago, maybe at a national or something else. It's been said that CALLERLAB is an organization of good old boys, and I really vehemently disagree. There were years when we first began when largely the leaders of this organization were the founding fathers. But since that time, our leadership turns over every year. Every year we get new members on our board of governors, we get new committee chairmen. CALLERLAB is looking for people that are interested in becoming involved, whether it be on the committee level, whether it be as moderators or panelists. Get involved. The more involved you are at each convention, the more you're going to enjoy each convention. And it's a great place to learn. So come here and listen. Speak up when you think that something needs to be spoken up about, and voice your opinions, and just enjoy yourself. It's a great time. There's a lot of good stories and a lot of good kibitzing that goes on in the halls and at the meetings, and I think you'll really enjoy it. How many are here from outside the U.S.? How many are here from Canada? There's some Canadians. How many are here from Germany? England? Australia? Japan? Scandinavian countries? Denmark? Sweden? Norway? Terrific. One of the neat things about this organization is that we have members that are all over the world. And one of the real joys of coming to a convention is to introduce yourself to some of these members that come from overseas, that make the trek all the way here to CALLERLAB. Introduce yourself and get to know these people. It's just a real joy to find out about what square dancing is all about in all the different regions of the world. It really opens up your horizons a little bit, and you really get a better perspective on square dancing. So introduce yourself to these people. And how many people from the United States? Any other countries that I didn't mention besides Texas? Brooklyn, California, excuse me. Thank you. How many have been on the CALLERLAB website? I'm so glad to see this website. I mean, it's still in development. We've got a long way to go, but it's all the information that you want to know about CallerLab, almost all the information, is on this website. Not only that, but we're starting to put out documents on this website that CallerLab has put out, and that previously you had to call the office or email the office or phone the office to have those documents sent out. There's not only all the lists out there, but there's some things on multi-cycle programming. There's some sessions on teaching hints for mainstream, teaching hints for plus. And so as time goes on, we'll see more and more information on this website. So get on and look around. It's even got one particular place that you can go here that you click on the main menu here and you go for site map. And you can look around and find out from that particular area what's on the entire site. So do avail yourself to the CallerLab website. I think you really enjoy it. Another place on the website that I particularly enjoyed was Winning Ways. In Winning Ways, there's a session at this convention about the Winning Ways portion of that website and the collection of the success reports from people that are making things work in their community. I hear from dancers all the time, is square dancing going down, or is it going up, or is it going... I said, it just depends on the area of the country. I said, you look at places that have good, strong caller leadership and good dancer leadership, and those areas are growing. I said, some areas that don't have callers or don't have dance leaders, those areas are slipping a little bit. I said, this is a great document. It'll tell you some of those places where people are making things work and what they're doing to make those things work. Again, there's the teaching tips thing that I talked about earlier on that website, and additional information. John, any questions about what we've talked about so far? Any questions about the convention so far? Ron? The microphone, please. I believe, yeah, this is being taped.
There it is. Ron Black from Los Angeles. We all know this is CallerLab. We've all come here for CallerLab. Meeting and greeting the other people in CallerLab is tough to do, even if they don't know or haven't seen you for a while, because our name is written so small at the bottom. Now I have had my badge modified just a little bit. Can we make the CallerLab logo or the CallerLab signature at the bottom and the name of the person wearing the badge largely at the top?
I think it's a great thing to put on your critique sheets, okay? And those are the kind of things that the executive committee likes to know. I mean, it's probably something that slid by, the design that came by, but it's one of those things that can go on the critique sheet, and I agree, Ron. If you've got a good suggestion and a way to make it better, let's make it better.
Point 2, I fully understand that your luggage is lost, so I will offer you my hat to wear if you'd care to.
I don't know how to tell you this, but hair and hats are both hot. Thank you, Ron. We'll take that up with the Home Office. One of the things that is scheduled in the convention each year are sessions called Board of Governors Informals. If you have a question about how the organization operates, or you have a suggestion as to what they might do to improve it, go to one of those sessions and talk with the board members who are there. They are staffed by members of the board, and they take your suggestions, your ideas seriously, and if they don't have an answer for you, they will discuss it with the rest of the board and or the office staff, and they will come back and give you an answer, and you'll see it in publication or you'll see it in direct correspondence. Those are Board of Governor informal sessions. They have similar discussion periods with the caller coaches. The accredited caller coaches have a couple of sessions there on the caller coach informals. If you have a question about caller training or caller schools or anything of that nature, go to those sessions and ask them your questions. They take you seriously, and if you think you've got a question that nobody else cares about, somebody else in the room probably is thinking the same thing. So by all means, bring it up. As to the fact that the badge names are small, I would hope all of you have a CallerLab badge which has a larger name print. Wear that as well. One of the things that some people have learned long time ago is that when you see somebody you don't know, offer your hand as a handshake and say, I'm so-and-so, glad to meet you. They may not catch your name the first time, but they'll appreciate the fact that you're honest enough to know that maybe they don't know you yet. And that's true from the highest muckety-muck to the first-time attendee who's from Lower Podunk. When Mike mentioned the people who are outside of the United States or North American continent, and you think you come from a remote place, think about where some of these other peoples have traveled from and the time it takes them to get here, and the fact that English is not their native language. We have it pretty good over here, guys and gals. We really do. We should be grateful for that. One of the things that you will hear tomorrow morning, you'll hear it several times. Wear your badges, because no badge, no meals, no exception. That seems to have stuck with this organization, and I think we're going to be living with it for many years to come. Wear your badge with pride, and when you get home and you go to your clubs, wear the CALLERLAB badge so that people know you're a member of CALLERLAB. It indicates several things. Not only do you support the organization for international square dance calling, but it also means that you are certified with BMI and ASCAP to call for the dances. And we have partners who are here. And to give you some idea of the partners' responsibilities and the partners committee, we have the vice chairman of the partners committee, Mr. Roy Gatta.
Thank you, John. I won't be nearly as long as Mike or John, because of course one of the jobs of the partner is to take whatever the caller says and translate it into shorter, understandable sentences that the dancers can. And I didn't bring my CALLERLAB badge because the airlines now have weight restrictions, so I knew I'd be getting one here. First of all, on the badges, for those of you that, if it's not been explained to you, you notice that on the partner's badge there is no little letter C, and on the caller's badge there is a C. That's what the C stands for. That identifies the caller in the pair, and only one would have that unless, of course, both of you are callers and independent members of CALLERLAB. At least that's the way it's supposed to be. Mistakes are made, and that was one of the things that did come about through the Partners Committee over the years, basically to avoid embarrassment, not to label things. What would happen, especially in the case, and I have first-hand knowledge of this, where there were the female callers, the women in calling, and someone would come up and strike up a conversation with me and start asking about choreography and this and that, and I go, that's very nice, except that, you know, Betsy's the caller. And then the person would be like really embarrassed and couldn't find a graceful way to get out of it. They say, oh, okay, and make a couple polite remarks and hit the road. So this was just something to try and help, you know, alleviate that possibility of embarrassment. That's all. You know, as I teach my students in high school, basically, if you can eliminate your possibility for error, well, then you're probably going to succeed. And we like to eliminate the possibility of embarrassment wherever we can. So that's that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the partner. I'm going to give you a very brief history of the Partners Committee, and then I should be done. And over the years, basically, the role of the partner hasn't changed, but the perception of the role of the partner has changed. And that was one of the reasons that the Callers Committee was formed. Back even before there was a Partners Committee, there was a discussion over the word partner. For many years, the first few CALLERLABs I attended, I was pretty much in the literature and the publications, and very often in the announcements, I was a caller's wife. And that's how I would usually introduce myself. And I'm not always so subtle. And then the term spouse came about, but then of course that didn't always work because the partner was not always a spouse in the traditional term spouse. So the word partner came about, and that's the one that is stuck, and is actually the most appropriate for what we do in the activity. So brief history of the Partners Committee. And you can read the full history. There is a thing called a Partners Handbook, if you didn't know that, and it's available through the CALLERLAB office. It is in serious need of revision, and that's one of the things we may discuss in the Partners Committee tomorrow. But The committee came about, it was actually the brainstorm of Erna Egender, who back in 1984 in Chicago invited 11 other partners to an informal meeting. And these 12 leaders of our activity, they held several meetings in Chicago, and basically out of those meetings, these get-togethers, they proposed a committee to the Board of Governors, and in May of 1984, the Board of Governors established the Partners Committee. Then in Phoenix in 1985, that was the first Partners session that was actually on the agenda or in the program. Several sessions were held primarily to plan for the future and decide which direction they were going to go. And there was also, they put together a session that was entitled Indian Culture, which was attended by about 125 partners that year in Phoenix. Since then and over the years, there has been partner sessions at every convention that has included topics such as styling, dress, ethics for partners, identity, stress management, publicity, wardrobe planning and packing, communication/diplomacy, time management, after parties, critiquing your partner, and CPR, which sometimes should be done together. But, so, and we're always looking, of course, for new ideas, because to be honest, the committee chairs are flat out run out of them. In 1989, the Partners Handbook was created under the direction of then Chairman Karen Ripito. This 114-page booklet included the history of the Partners Committee, the history of CALLERLAB, convention tips, what to wear, what to do, and there were articles based on many of the presentations that I just mentioned before. They had printed articles that came about from the presentations. And there were also 69 pages of recipes and sewing patterns. The book was revised and updated in 1992, once again under the direction of Karen Ripito, and it now has 79 pages and no recipes or patterns. Once again, it is indeed of updating, and we will discuss that in committee. Over the last 10 years or so, it has been my impression that the attendance at the convention by the partners has dwindled slightly, not just in response to the dwindling attendance of the callers, but fewer of the partners were attending, and so naturally there were then fewer partners at the intra-sessions. So to the point that pretty much what is planned at the convention is up to the whim of the committee chairman. And we've gotten away from the original idea for the Partners Committee, once again, which was what is the partner's role in CALLERLAB? Not the partner's role, period, but what is their role in CALLERLAB? And this convention will focus on that. Commenting on a couple things that my colleagues mentioned before, if you can't decide, if there's two sessions that are going on simultaneously, you can't decide which one you want to go to. This applies to everybody. And one of them is being taped. Go to the other one. You can always buy the tape. If the one's not being taped, then it's lost to you. Speaking on the microphone. I have just spent quite a few months listening to my wife use some words I haven't heard her use before. She has been editing the CALLERLAB tapes, the teaching tapes, doing a Best of CALLERLAB thing, and one of the things she's had to do is identify not just people who were commenting, but the actual speakers, the panelists and the moderators who didn't bother to identify themselves on the microphone. So she's had to listen to these, call people, try and use her own knowledge. Fortunately, she's been to all of these since '76, so she actually remembers some of them. And then edit by putting her voice and saying this is being presented by so-and-so, or that comment was made by so-and-so. And we like to know who makes the comments, especially if it's especially critical and we can make you the next chairman. So, in conclusion, basically, and this, the partners, the callers, you know this, the partners, you are free to attend any session you want. You are welcome to be there. And you do not need to go with your partner, but you can go with your partner. Basically, it's your decision to participate or not participate as you choose. Your comments are welcome. I go to an awful lot of, I rarely go to a session with my wife because there's too many things we need to cover. But when I go and I have something to say, I raise my hand, I'm recognized, and it's a welcome comment. Keep in mind that if you're thinking something, and you may think, I'm not going to say this because I may be the only person in the room thinking that. You might be the only person in the room that's right. And that has happened. Wow, why didn't we think of that? So feel free to speak up. And in conclusion, I said in conclusion, so I lied. Keep in mind that if somebody says something that in your mind, God, that's really stupid, or, you know, what planet is this person from? That person making the comment is sincere in what they're saying, and they believe in that, and just keep that in mind. Keep an open mind whenever you're here. Thank you.
As callers, we know we can project. But let me assure you that if the session is being taped and you are sitting in the back of the room and you want to ask a question, if you're not on the mic, it is a dead spot in the tape. Now, when Roy says that his wife Betsy edited the tapes, the teaching tapes that we first had since 1980 numbered something in the neighborhood of 38 to 40 tapes. Herb Egender did a yeoman job of reducing those down to about 6 tapes. Betsy has further revised that just a little bit and added, because they increased the length of the tape, so that I think it's going to be a 5, is it, Roy? Okay. I knew I could count on you for that. It's somewhere around 5.5 tapes. This project has been ongoing for a considerable length of time, and if there's one thing that frustrates Scott Argo and his people of Convention Tapes International, and they have a new name, and I apologize for not knowing what that is, but it's on there. There's a form that you can order the tapes. It is an extremely well done presentation by this service. We've had them at every convention since 1980, and they do a terrific job. If you need to get a copy of a specific tape, you can still do that, because there are a number of places where they have all of those tapes available. If you are a member of a Callers Association and you have a decent-sized treasury, I would encourage you to get the tapes or buy them in the CD format, because those are available and they're an excellent training tool for your callers who just get into the field of calling. But if the session is taped, please, please, please get to a microphone if you have a question or a comment. Even though you may project and the people in that particular room can hear you, it doesn't come out on the tape. And if I buy a tape and there's 10 minutes of silence in there because you didn't get on the tape, guess what? I'm upset. And there's no reason to have people buy a tape that has silence in it, because you people know. Get on the microphone, ask your question, make your comment, give your opinion. And it doesn't make any difference if you're a first-time attendee or someone who's attended for 15, 20, 30 times. Are there any questions on any of the things that we have covered? Remember, you're going to have meals, noon, dinner tomorrow, breakfast with your coupon ticket on Tuesday, noon and dinner on Tuesday, breakfast with your coupon on Wednesday. No badge, no food, no exceptions. Anybody have any questions? Yes. Yeah, if you don't want to ask the question on the microphone, we will stick around for a while. The after party is going to start here in this room at 9:15. So those of you who are not sitting in the front row but want to get a great seat for the after party, there's still time to move up. Yes, Ron.
Were there 2 comments made by Roy, blank spots on the tape?
Yes. And Roy's comment was repeated for the benefit of the tape by telling you that we're going to stick around after this is over if you have a question you'd like to ask us on an individual basis. Oh, excuse me.
The other thing is at meals, don't just always go in and sit at a table with all the friends that you've had and that you came with. Mix, mingle, and meet some new ones. This is a big country and a big world. I'm fascinated by the people from Iowa. You know. So mix and mingle and sit with other people.
That was my wife, Freddie. Silver tongue, she calls herself. If you're going to reserve a place at a table during the banquets, please do not tilt the chairs. Somebody will trip on them and bark their shins. If you want to save a seat, and we don't encourage you to do that, put a napkin through the back of the chair or something that identifies it as being in use. But don't tilt the chairs up. The waiters are coming around, and if they trip on one of them, there's no telling what would happen. The banquets are the times when we have the presentation of the appreciation awards, the award of excellence, the 25-year certificates, the 50-year certificates, small world awards for the people who attend a convention from the overseas location out of the continental North America. And they're great fun. Sometimes you want to sit up front, sometimes you want to be where you're closer to the exit because you might have to make a pit stop or something of that nature. There is generally an open session before the banquet if you care to have a beverage of your choice before the banquet. Some people might even buy a bottle of wine for their particular table. That's fine, we don't care, but that's on your bill, not on CALLERLAB's bill. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, guys and gals. But as Freddie says, encourage you to meet and eat with other people other than your own circle of friends. And as is said with the red, white, and blue stripes on the badges indicating first-timers, please make them feel welcome. Introduce yourselves to them. Find out how long they've been calling. Find out what they're doing in the activity. Find out if there's some question that's bugging them and maybe you can help answer it. Or point them in the right direction. Jerry Reed and the staff, Gail Swindle, John Swindle, and the others that are there in the office, they're a great group of people. And the Board of Governors, they're wearing the red ribbons. And there are other colored ribbons. If you see a brown ribbon, that indicates a moderator of the session. If you see a blue ribbon, it indicates a committee chairman or a vice chairman. And I don't know what the other colors are. I think they have some pale yellows and blue or whatever. Brown, what? I mentioned brown. Oh yeah, VIP badges. The people who are representing other organizations will be introduced tomorrow morning, and they'll be introduced again on Wednesday, and they'll be given an opportunity to make a comment or two. For those of you who are interested in perhaps going to a caller school sometime in the future, there are a number of scholarships which are available through CALLERLAB, through Bill Hyman and his Supreme Audio and the Handhurst Tape Service, and from the Overseas Dancers Association. These scholarships are available for your use. If you are a member of a caller association and you are an affiliated organization to CALLERLAB, you have an opportunity to receive funding for clinics. These clinics will pay your organization up to $150 per day, up to a maximum of 3 days, or $450. That's a pretty good benefit that you can take advantage of once every 4 years or so. We encourage you to do that. CALLERLAB is a very democratic organization that is there to serve you. It is not something, as Mike has said, it's just a bunch of good old boys. There are people on the board that you might say, well, he's a good old boy, and if you get elected, you automatically become a good old boy or a good old girl. Yeah, I guess to an extent you are, but in reality, you're still a local club caller at home, or perhaps a regional caller, or perhaps you're a festival caller. But your opinion is one person's opinion, and your opinion as an individual member of CALLERLAB is just as important as that senior member on the board of directors. Okay? Any questions now? If not, we thank you for attending. Stick around for the after parties. It will be a great session. It always is. And remember to shop on Tuesdays. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Freddie.